So what is bronchial asthma? First of all, we are going to discuss what is bronchial asthma. So asthma is a heterogeneous disease, and usually it is characterized by the chronic airway inflammation. And it is defined by the history of respiratory system, symptoms like wheeze, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and cough, and it can vary over time and intensity. And moreover, it has a variable expiratory airflow limitation on spirometry, and symptoms may resolve spontaneously or response to the medication, and there may be absence of these symptoms for a week or months, and there can be episodic flare-up. So what is asthma phenotype? It is as you know that it is a heterogeneous type of disease, so it has a lot of phenotypes, like it has allergic asthma, non-allergic asthma, late onset asthma, asthma with fixed airway limitation, and asthma with obesity. What is allergic asthma? Basically, patient comes with a history of childhood allergy, history of atopy in the family, history of allergic reactions like eczema, allergic rhinitis, food allergy, drug allergy. And on induced sputum of these patients, there will be eosinophilic airway inflammation, and most of these patients respond well to the inhaled corticosteroids and oral corticosteroids. In non-allergic asthma, some patient may have a history of asthma without allergy, and the cellular profile of these patients are neutrophilic predominant, and it is polygranulocytic. Patient respond less to the inhaled corticosteroids. Late onset asthma, some adult, especially women, they presented in the late time of their adult life with the allergic symptoms, and these patients actually refractory to the corticosteroids. Asthma with fixed airflow limitations, these patients actually develop fixed airflow limitation on spirometry, and because of fixed airflow limitation, they respond very less to the inhaled corticosteroid treatment as well as the anticholinergics and other treatment related to asthma. It is because of the airway remodeling that happens because of the phenotype. Asthma with obesity. Some patients are obese, they actually present prominent symptoms of respiratory symptom and little eosinophilic airway inflammation. So this is the, actually it is one of the most chronic disease in the worldwide, and approximately 300 million individual has been infected with this disease. Poorly controlled asthma is expensive for a developing country like India, because it actually give a large burden to the emergency services of our country, because poorly controlled asthma, we see a lot of patients in emergency. So this is global prevalence, and this is the pathophysiology. I'm not going into detail of the pathophysiology of the bronchial asthma. You must be knowing, you all have read in pathology. Yeah. Cell involved, this mast cells, macrophages, eosinophils, neutrophils, and T lymphocytes. And the inflammatory mediators are histamine, chemokines, leukotrienes, cytokines, nitric oxides, prostaglandin D2. So triggers are, in history, we will definitely ask patient. Patient comes in our OPD with a history of bronchial asthma. We should take history of these things, like what kind of medicine patient is taking, whether it is exercise induced, whether patient is a smoker, or any history of any stress, exposure to or symptoms exacerbate in cold air, or any food symptoms exacerbate. History of exposure to the molds, pollens, dust mites, and this is pet denders and pollution. You must have noticed in the time of smog, during the time of winters, there is exacerbation of asthma get precipitated because of pollution causes one of the trigger. Pollution is one of the trigger and it causes precipitation of exacerbation of bronchial asthma. Clinical presentation. In history, patient basically present in the childhood or adulthood with the symptoms of cough, mostly nocturnal, sputum production, chest tightness, dyspnea that can be intermittent, and wheeze. Diurnal variation. There will be diurnal variation of the symptoms in a patient of bronchial asthma, and on peak expiratory flow meters, there will be diurnal variation of the lung functions. There may be marked morning dipping of peak flow is common in such patient, and it can be sign of serious attack despite of other normal peak flow at other times. Exercise, patient can have the intolerance to exercise, patient can have the history of disturbed sleep. Acid reflux, mostly 40 to 60% of the patient complain acid reflux. They can have the history of eczema, hay fever, allergy to food, allergy to some drug, and there can be family history of atopy. In home or bedroom, patient can have the pets, carpets, pillow, floor cushions, and other soft furnishings, and these all leads to precipitation of exacerbation of bronchial asthma. Sometimes patient have occupational bronchial asthma, and it is related to a type of job patient is performing, and the symptom of such patients remits at weekends or holiday. Work may provide the triggers, okay, like a paint sprayer, food processor, welders, and animal handlers. You should ask your patient to measure his peak flow at the intervals at work and at home at the same time of the day to confirm this diagnosis, because at the time of his job time or duty, there can be a decrease in their lung functions at peak flow meter, and it get improves while patients stay at home. Okay, so you can get the diagnosis whether patient is having occupational bronchial asthma or any other disease. So family history, commencement of the respiratory symptom in the childhood, history of allergic rhinitis and or eczema, history of asthma or allergy. However, their feature not specific for the asthma, and it is not always there in all phenotypes. Patient can have the history of allergic rhinitis, atopic dermatitis, and we should specifically ask such patients about the respiratory system. Because allergic rhinitis patient, most of the time, 80% of the patient can have bronchial asthma associated. with their allergic rhinitis symptoms. So this is the spirometry. Why we perform spirometry? We perform spirometry to know the lung functions of the patient. And in bronchial asthma, we always do post-bronchodilator reversibility to confirm the diagnosis of bronchial asthma. As you can see, this red line, this is a flow volume curve. This is a flow volume curve. As you can see, this red line, this denotes patient's lung function before bronchodilator. This BD stand for the bronchodilator. And mostly what bronchodilator we use? We use SABA, that is short acting beta 2 agonist, that is salbutamol or levosalbutamol. After bronchodilator, there is an improvement in the lung function of the patient. So this is for the reversibility. FB1 by FBC is reduced in such patients, which is normally 0.75 to 0.88 in adults and 0.9 in children. In adult, there is an increase in FB1 that is of more than 12% or more than 200 ml from baseline after 10 to 15 minutes of 200 to 400 micrograms of SABA, that is short-acting beta-2 agonist, that is salbutamol or levosalbutamol. If there is high post-bronchodilator reversibility, that is more than 15% or more than 400 ml of change, then you can make a diagnosis of bronchial asthma confidently. What is peak expiratory flow meter? Actually, we used to measure peak expiratory flow rate on peak expiratory flow meter. It is a home-based method, and it is advised to those patients who are not able to get their symptoms, like whether they are deteriorating in their symptoms or not. They are not able to judge those things. So we provide those patients with peak expiratory flow, and they are advised to perform peak expiratory flow morning and evening. So we can see for the daily diurnal peak expiratory variability. If it is more than 10%, then there is we can suspect for the bronchial asthma in such patients. Bronchial challenge test, we only perform in adults, and it is antigenic challenge of bronchial mucosa with the standard dose of methacholine or histamine, and there is a fall in FV1 from baseline of 20% post change. Other testings, blood test, what we advise to patients, total leukocyte count upon absolute eosinophilic count, and there can be eosinophilia in such patients. Total IgE, and especially specific IgG and IgG, skin prick test for the fungus, chest X-ray, often not diagnostic, but it rule out other differentials. Laryngoscopy and ENT examination to rule out other differentials. DDs for bronchial asthma. In upper airway obstruction, there can be tumor, a vocal cord dysfunction. In lower airway disease, there can be allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, cystic fibrosis, bronchiectasis, foreign body, especially in children, endobronchial lesion in old-aged patient. CHF, GERD, sinusitis, hypersensitive pneumonitis, acute hypersensitive pneumonitis can present as a acute condition of bronchial asthma. Acute drug reaction like drug allergy to aspirin, ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, and hyperventilation with panic attacks, especially in females or any stress conditions. Patient can present with hyperventilation with symptoms you can confuse with the bronchial asthma. So, management. Our long-term goals are to achieve a control of symptoms, to maintain a normal activity level, and to minimize future risk of exacerbation, fixed airway, airflow limitation, and side effect of the medicines. So this is what we follow, review. First of all, we assess the diagnosis, then adjust the treatment, then review the response. This is what we follow in our OPDs. How we assess a patient, whether it is controlled asthma, well-controlled asthma, partially controlled asthma, or uncontrolled asthma. We used to ask few questions to the patient and about the symptoms in the last 4 weeks. So if daytime asthma symptoms more than twice a week, any night wakening due to asthma, reliever need for the symptoms more than twice a week, any activity limitation due to asthma. So if it is none of these, so asthma is well controlled. If 1 to 2 of these, it is partially controlled. And if it is 3 to 4 of these, it is uncontrolled asthma. In assessment, we can have a number of questionnaires are present, but what we most use in our OPD is asthma control questionnaire, that is ACQ, higher is worse, and asthma control test. This is higher is better. I'm not going in detail of these assessment tests. I'm just naming these tests. So treatment adjustment. I would like to tell you first of all what are controller medicine and what are reliever medicines. Controller medicines are those medicines that prevent the symptoms of asthma. Like it decreases the inflammation in the airway, so it prevent the symptoms. Controller medications reduce inflammation of the airway over the time and lower the risk of severe attacks. And these medications are inhaled corticosteroid, long-acting beta-2 agonist, that is LABA, long-acting muscarinic antagonist, that is LAMA, leukotriene receptor antagonist, that is LTRA, OCS, that is oral corticosteroids, and biological medicines that are right now available. Reliever medicines are those medicines that rapidly improve the symptom of the patient within 20 to 30 minutes because it relaxes the airway muscles and open the airway and make it easier to breathe. They work within minutes and with the effect lasting for 4 hours. And these medicines are SABA and SAMA. That is SABA stands for the short-acting beta-2 agonist and SAMA stands for short-acting muscarinic agonist. SABA is your salbutamol and neosalbutamol, and SAMA is your ipratropium bromide. So back to the previous slides. Okay, this is how we follow a patient. This is how we treat a patient of bronchial asthma. First of all, we look for the disease, whether it is mild, moderate, or severe. In step 1, what we actually prefer to a patient having mild symptoms or just occasional symptoms, we basically prefer low dose inhaled corticosteroid in such patients. Reliever not always advised. In step 2, having symptoms most of the day, we advise for low dose ICS, inhaled corticosteroid, and reliever as needed, short acting beta-2 agonist, that is SABA. In step 3, We provide patient with the low dose ICS with LABA, with or without LABA, and as needed SABA or low dose ICS with or without formoterol. In step 4, we provide with medium to high ICS and LABA. And step 5, we adding other things like medium to high dose ICS and LABA. We add other things in step 5 like anti-IgE. We give LAMA and low dose oral corticosteroids in step 5, that is the uncontrolled bronchial asthma patients. We start showing few medicines, few inhaled corticosteroids with their dose classification. And what we usually use in our OPD, that is a budesonide, API or MDI, and fluticasone. These two inhaled corticosteroid, one of the popular corticosteroid in our scenario. So what is the high dose of these corticosteroid? It is more than, for budesonide, it is more than 800 micrograms, and for fluticasone, it is more than 500 micrograms. You must have noticed that in our hospital, we get this Seroflow, and the strength of the Seroflow is 250 microgram, and it is fluticasone. Controller and reliever I already discussed. As you can see, this is normal airway. Okay, this is normal airway, and you can see this lumen, and this is surrounding muscles, smooth muscles. In asthmatic airway, this is inflamed and thickened smooth muscles. Mucosa, sorry, this is thickened mucosa. And in asthmatic airway during exacerbation, it gets more tighter. And there's excess of the secretion in the airway. These smooth muscles get tightened, and there's a excess mucus secretion. Non-pharmacological interventions. First of all, we have to advise to a patient of bronchial asthma, you should avoid tobacco and smoke exposure, because these lead to precipitation of the bronchial asthma, exacerbation of bronchial asthma. Especially environmental tobacco smokes, and if patient is smoking, so we should ask patient not to do such things, because it can precipitate exacerbation of bronchial asthma or can lead to uncontrolled bronchial asthma. Physical activity, encourage your patient for the physical activity and to decrease weight if patient is obese. Occupational asthma, ask patient with adult onset asthma about work history. Remove sensitizer as soon as possible. Avoid medication that may worsen asthma, especially always ask for the medications patient is taking, like NSAIDs and beta blocker. Avoid allergens. Few patients are allergic to the articles that they're using in their home, like pillows, mattress, because of the house dust mite. They remain uncontrolled in their symptoms. So it is always advised to use hypoallergic pillows, and to cover pillow with polythene sheets while using. And one more thing I would like to discuss, few perfumes, few patients are allergic to perfumes. You should also advise those patients not to use perfumes, agarbattis and dhoop-battis, because it can also lead to exacerbation of the bronchial asthma, and it can lead to the uncontrolled symptoms of the bronchial asthma. So stepping down treatment of bronchial asthma, if any patient comes to you with good control and it is continuous for 3 months, so you have to step down the treatment. Whatever you have advised initially, you have to step down the treatment after 3 months and find each patient's minimal effective dose that control both symptoms and exacerbations. Okay, I told you about the biological medicine that has been approved for the asthma. Right now, we are using like few biological medicine in uncontrolled bronchial asthma patients, and these medicines are like omalizumab, that is anti-IgE. It is given subcutaneously. Mepolizumab, it is anti-IL-5. It is also used subcutaneous. Trastuzumab, this is anti-IL-5. It is given intravenous. And benralizumab, it is anti-IL-5 receptor. It is given subcutaneous. And there's new form of treatment modalities coming up. That is the bronchial thermoplasty for the uncontrolled or steroid dependent or refractory to steroids. Those patients are eligible for bronchial thermoplasty. What we do in bronchial thermoplasty, we do debulking of the smooth muscles in 3 settings through a bronchoscope. So it is a new technique that is coming up. Now, first we did assessment, now we review response. So how often should asthma be reviewed? Asthma should be reviewed within 1 to 3 months after treatment started, then every 3 to 12 months. And in pregnancy, it should be reviewed within 4 to 6 weeks. And after an exacerbation, it should be reviewed within 1 week. Stepping off the asthma treatment, when to advise to step up asthma treatment? Especially when there is a morning dipping in PFR of the patient having uncontrolled asthma on the questionnaires that you have asked to the patient, or patient is pregnant. In those conditions, you have to step up the asthma treatment. So what kind of stepping actually we do with the asthma patient? That is sustained step up for at least 2 to 3 months if asthma is poorly controlled. And few things we have to check, like whether patient is taking inhalers properly or not. Sometimes patients not taking inhalers, or if they are taking, technique is not right. So we should check the technique of the patient, how patient is taking inhaler. Sometimes patient का inhaler खत्म हो जाता है and they keep on taking it क्योंकि उनको पता ही नहीं होता how to check whether MDI is functioning or not. So we have to check them. Few patients are poorly adherent to their treatment. They are not regular with the treatment. जब मन किया ले लिया, जब मन किया नहीं लिया. It's up to them only. So we should check them before stepping up our treatment. Short-term step up, it is for 1 to 2 weeks. After a viral infection, we should step up the treatment. And we should give a written asthma action plan to the patient. Day-to-day adjustment for the patient prescribed low dose ICS, formoterol maintenance and reliever regimen. We should ask the patient, increase your dose according to your need. In one day, if patient required lower dose of the steroid, on other day, if patient having more symptoms, then we advise adjust your medications according to your symptoms. So it is the day-to-day adjustment. So what is the risk factor for the exacerbation? What are those patients who can land up into the exacerbation or death related to the bronchial asthma? So these are the patients who are using high short-acting beta-2 agonist, like more than 1 canister in a month they used to take. It means their asthma is uncontrolled. It shows that their asthma is uncontrolled, so they are more prone for the mortality related to bronchial asthma. Inadequate inhaled corticosteroid. Patient has been prescribed inadequate dose of the inhaled corticosteroid. Like according to the inflammation of the airways or symptoms of the patient needs higher dose of inhaled corticosteroid, but the clinician has given a lower dose of corticosteroid. So you have to check for the poor adherence in correct technique and the prescription of the patient for the prescribed inhaled corticosteroid. Low force expiratory volume in 1 second, low FV1, especially if it is less than 60% of the predicted value on spirometry. High bronchodilator reversibility on spirometry, it is also suggested that patient is having uncontrolled asthma. Major psychosocial problems, like patient having any stress disorder, any panic attack like symptoms. So those patients are also prone to exacerbation of bronchial asthma. Continuous exposure to the smoking, allergen, this leads to the uncontrolled bronchial asthma and can lead to the exacerbations. Comorbidities like obesity, chronic rhinosinusitis, food allergy, sputum or blood, eosinophilia. Elevated FeNO, forced expired nitrous oxide in adult with allergic asthma taking ICS, and last one is pregnant patient. Another patient who are at risk of death to the bronchial asthma, those patients who ever intubated for the exacerbation of the bronchial asthma. So what is bronchial asthma? There are many terms we used, like acute severe asthma, asthma flare-up, asthma attack, or asthma episode. These are the synonyms that we use for the exacerbation of the bronchial asthma. What is the definition of asthma exacerbations? Basically, it is characterized by the progressive increase in the symptoms, like shortness of breath, cough, wheezing, chest tightness, and progressive decrease in the lung function. And actually, all these symptoms want or requires a change in the treatment. Exacerbation may occur in patient with pre-existing disease or patient present to the emergency department for the first time with the history of exacerbation. What triggers asthma? I already told you. Sorry, asthma exacerbation. Common exacerbators are viral respiratory infection, allergen exposure like grass pollen, soya beans, fungal spores, food allergy, outdoor or indoor air pollutions like smog, what we get after Diwali, seasonal changes during the time of rain, poor adherence with the inhaled corticosteroids. Patient not taking inhalers properly, or patient have this belief that they will get addicted to the inhaled corticosteroid, whatever prescribed by the doctor. So because of their belief, they don't take steroids. Severe exacerbation can occur in patient with mild or well-controlled asthma symptoms as well. What is fixed airway limitation? Fixed airway limitation when patient is having obstruction and patient having history of bronchial asthma and allergy, but on spirometry, there is no reversibility we get. Post bronchodilator reversibility actually absent, or it is very minimal. So such patients, actually what we label them as asthma COPD overlap. If patient is having age more than 45 and having history of atopy or allergic symptoms like allergic rhinitis, food allergy, or skin allergy, or history of smoking. And on spirometry, there is There is no post bronchodilator reversibility or present, or if it is present, it is very less. So such patients are actually a patient who develop fixed airway limitation, and these patients are difficult to treat. These patients have low initial FEV1s, can have the history of chronic mucus hypersecretion, and can have the blood eosinophilia or the sputum eosinophilia. Factors that increases the risk of asthma-related deaths: a history of near-fatal asthma requiring intubation or mechanical ventilation, hospitalization or emergency care visits for the asthma in the last year, currently using or having recently stopped using oral corticosteroids. It is actually a marker for event severity. Or patient not currently using any of the inhaled corticosteroids. Few patients overuse SABA, especially more than one canister in a month. Or patient is having history of psychiatric illness or poor adherence to the medicines, or having history of food allergy. I'm not going, I already told you this pathogenesis and all. In history, we already discussed. Lab investigation, already we did. So how we assess the severity of exacerbation? These are few parameters we look for a patient who comes in our emergency department with the history of exacerbations of bronchial asthma. We actually look for the comprehension, position of the patient, mental status of the patient, peak expiratory flow rate on PEFR, respiratory rate of the patient, pulse rate, use of accessory muscles, and saturation on room air. If after assessment, like if patient is able to speak complete sentences, able to sit or lie down, patient not agitated, and PEFR is more than 50% of the predicted, respiratory rate is less than 30, pulse rate is 100 to 120, use of accessory muscle is absent, and SpO2 is 95. Those patients are categorized at mild to moderate of severity. And is severe when patient is not able to comprehend properly. Patient speaks in words. Patient sit with horseback, agitated. Less than 50% of the predicted PEFR you are getting on PEFR, and respiratory rate is more than 30, pulse rate is more than 120, and there is use of the accessory muscle, and SpO2 is less than 90%. So those patients we categorize as severe exacerbation of bronchial asthma. Life-threatening bronchial asthma when patient is drowsy, confused, silent chest, and PCO2 is more than 45 mmHg. So such patient, severe and life-threatening, such patient be transferred to HDU or acute care facility, and mild to moderate we start the treatment in emergency only. Treatment of mild to moderate acute bronchial asthma, short-acting beta-2 agonist, we give to the patient 4 to 10 puff by a meter dose inhaler with spacer, and we repeat it 20 minutes for every 20 minutes for an hour. We give prednisolone 1 mg per kg body weight. It can be up to 4 to 50 mg. And we should give controlled oxygen to such patient, targeting SpO2 of 93 to 95%. This is how I explained. Patient is using MDI. This is meter dose inhaler with a spacer. It is equally good to the nebulizer. When patient is not drowsy, you can prescribe any patient this thing. We can also give ipratropium bromide to such patient, SABA plus SAMA. SS response after 1 hour. If improvement present, SS for the discharge. And discharge criteria are if PEFR is more than 60 to 80% of the personal best predicted, symptoms improved, SpO2 more than 94% or no more. If there is no improvement after 1 hour of the treatment, shift such patients in acute care facility. Severe acute bronchial asthma, already I told you the symptoms and signs. How you treat severe acute bronchial asthma? Nebulization with the SABA and SAMA and high dose inhaled corticosteroid. Okay. Controlled oxygen therapy to the patient with targeted SpO2 of 93 to 95%. And we prescribe intravenous magnesium sulfate in 100 ml of saline in 20 minutes. Basically, we prescribe 2 grams of magnesium sulfate in 100 ml of saline in 20 minutes. So what is life-threatening acute bronchial asthma? If any one of the sign or symptom present, then we label patient as life-threatening acute bronchial asthma. Like if patient is drowsy, confused, comatose, on auscultation, there is silent chest, PO2 is less than 60 mmHg, PaCO2 if more than 45 mmHg, cyanosis, feeble respiratory effort, there is a respiratory muscle fatigue you can see in a patient with bradycardia or patient is having hypotension. If patient is having bradycardia or hypotension, then these are the life-threatening acute bronchial asthma signs. Treat such patient in ICU if they don't respond to any of the treatment. This is a mechanical ventilation settings. I'm not going to discuss it. Okay, first, now I'm going to discuss few medicines. Okay, yeah. I think we have 15 minutes left, so I can discuss mechanical ventilation settings with you. So initial ventilator settings, we actually go for the low respiratory rate, that is 12 to 14 breaths per minute. Tidal volume, we need 4 to 8 ml per kg. FiO2 should be sufficient to maintain adequate oxygen saturation, that is our target more than 92%. And relatively long expiratory time, IE ratio, that is inspiratory is to expiratory ratio, it should be 1:4, and little or no PEEP, less than, our PEEP should be less than 5 centimeter H2. If we are using volume control or ventilation, appropriate goal should be to achieve relative pressure of less than 35 centimeter of H2O with pH of more than 7.2. Now I'm going to discuss bronchodilators that we are using for asthma patient, that is a short-acting inhaled beta-2 agonist, that is SABA, salbutamol or leo-salbutamol. This is one of the most important bronchodilators in the treatment of exacerbation of asthma. They actually act on the beta-2 receptors in the airway. When patient respond well to the SABA, usually 2 to 3 dose given to nebulization or meter dose inhalation. They can be given through inhalation therapy or through inhalation, like we can give it to with the MDIs and DPIs or through nebulization. It rapidly improves the airway obstruction. and improve the lung functions. They can be repeated as frequently as needed by the response of the patient. Clinical improvement and improvement in peak flow to more than 60% of predicted or more than 60% of the previous best. In severe acute asthma, it is recommended that whenever possible, they should be administered using oxygen-driven nebulizer, but we have to keep eye on our SpO2. It should not be more than 95% in adult, and it is 98% targeted in children. Anticholinergics, inhaled ipratropium bromide is only anticholinergic agent that has been proven effective in acute asthma. It achieves bronchodilation of airways by vagal pathway through inhibition of the muscarinic receptor. Its bronchodilator effect in asthma is inferior to the SABA. It is administered by the inhalation only, most commonly by nebulization or with an MDI. Oral tablets are not actually indicated, not there. Reserved as the second line bronchodilator for the treatment of the acute asthma. It's not prescribed, actually, generally we are not prescribed to mild to moderate asthma. It is reserved for the acute exacerbation of the asthma patients. Combination with the SABA produce better bronchodilator than either of the drug and is associated with a lower hospitalization rate in acute severe asthmas. Magnesium sulfate, I already told you, it has a bronchodilator effect. It works by inhibiting smooth muscle contraction, decreasing histamine release from the mast cells, and inhibiting acetylcholine release. It is given intravenously. It is not recommended routinely in acute asthma, but is of the value in acute severe asthma. If patient has FeV1 less than 25% and patient doesn't respond to other bronchodilator, there we prescribe magnesium sulfate. Intravenous magnesium sulfate dose is 1 to 2 grams IV in 100 ml of the saline for 20 minutes. And it can be repeated according to the clinical judgment. It is a safe medicine, but side effect can be flushing, sweating, hypotension, nausea, muscle weakness, and central nervous system depression. Theophilus, I have seen many prescriptions. Most of the clinicians prescribe Theophilus to the asthma patient and COPD patient, but it is not recommended on routine basis. So it is actually not recommended in acute asthma patients. It is only recommended when there is no response to SABA, SAMA, or magnesium sulfate. It has a very narrow therapeutic range and toxicity is more common, like cardiac arrhythmias. It increases heart rate, nausea, vomiting, convulsions, hypotension, and coma. So it is not routinely given to asthmatic patients. Glucocorticosteroids. This is a controlled medicine for the bronchial asthma patients. And inhaled corticosteroids are the main treatment for the chronic inflammation of the airway in bronchial asthma patient. It is one of the most important anti-inflammatory agent for asthma patient. Onset of the action within 1 hour of the administration, and first dose should be given orally or intravenously immediately. So it can be given through inhaled mode, through inhaled administration can be done by inhalation or through IV and or through oral. This is a flow chart. I already told you about all these things in detail. So these are the special topics in asthma, catamenial asthma, that is asthma related with the menstruations. At each cycle of menstruation, patient land up in exacerbation of asthma. Difficult to treat asthma are those asthma sometimes they are not diagnosed properly, whether asthma or some other disease, and they doesn't actually respond to oral steroids and inhaled corticosteroids. So those asthmas are difficult to treat. Occupational asthma, it is related to the profession of the patient. It gets exacerbated during the time of duties or working hours of the patient and get improved when patient stays at home. Sputum guided treatment in asthma, it is according to the eosinophil numbers in the sputum that guides the treatment of asthma. And written asthma action plan. We are not following this thing in our Indian scenario, and it is very difficult to follow. So I'm just closing this session right now, and we will be back after 10 minutes for the session of tuberculosis. Any question?